All right, today we're converting fractions, decimals, and percents to solve percent problems. This is a lot. Usually this is an entire chapter in pre-algebra or accelerated math 7. So hopefully you are remembering how to convert a decimal to a percent. So just remember when we have a decimal, if you can say it, you can put it into fraction form. 63 hundredths is the fraction. And 63 hundredths is how we say the decimal. And then to convert that decimal to the percent, we move the decimal to the right twice. We're actually multiplying by 100. That moving the decimal 2 times to the right is multiplying by 100. If I start with a percent, notice I'm going to divide by 100. I move it to the left 2 times. I can first put it in fraction form, 29 over 100. But what we really do is look at the alphabet. So since in the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. So when you go from percent to decimal, you move that direction. When you move from decimal to percent, you move in that direction. The same direction as the alphabet. Hopefully everybody's remembering that. It's 2 times. So what does that 2 times really signify? What? Multiplying by 100 or dividing by 100. Moving of 2 times is not really a math move. All right, so pause the recording if you want to take more notes here. All right, when we have a fraction, I like to say top dog goes in the dog house. So that means the top dog goes into the box in fractions. And the 8 is the divisor. Okay? When to convert something like this, you would say top, middle, bottom. So this is the middle, this is the top, this is the bottom, and top dog goes in the dog house to remind you which ones go in. You should have learned that we can take the numerator, divide it by the denominator or the divisor, and we will get a decimal value for that fraction. Then to convert it to a decimal, what do I have to do? Everybody? Multiply by 100, move it to the right 2 times, and we have 87.5%. We're in percent form. Any questions? When I have a percent, I'm doing the same thing, only this time we're going from percent to what? We're going from percent to decimal, right? So I'm moving to the left 2 times, which is really dividing by 100. And then I can put it, if you can say it, 61 hundredths. I say the number, and then I say this is tenths. Oops, this is supposed to be tenths, hundredths. So 61 hundredths, then you can write the fraction. Okay? I'm not going to take the time to go through this. If you want to do it, you can pause the recording. If you have a fraction that you convert, make sure you always give me the reduced fraction. Is everybody clear? So notice it's 9 thousandths, so it's going to be, move it twice. It's 0 and 9/10%. 30%. And when it's more than 100%, it should be a mixed number. So if I move the decimal 2 places, what would it be? Nicole? 2 places. Where's the decimals? Naturally on the right side. 2 and 7/10, which would also be the fraction, 2 and 7/10. Okay? 2 times. Okay, any questions there? Quick review on converting repeating decimals. We're still doing top dog goes in the dog house. We go until we see the repeat. At that point, we get to stop. So if the decimal is, when we're doing the decimal, we put the repeat bar over the first 6. I don't want to see 1.66 with the bar over both of it. Over the first number that repeats. Now, if I'm going to move this over, right? 0.16 and it's repeated, and I go once, twice, what would be the next number here? 6, right? So wouldn't it be 16.6 repeated, right? But we don't use repeat bars. Like especially with banks, they convert that to a fraction. Does anybody know what 0.6 repeated is? Yes. Yeah, sure. 2/3. So it's 16 and 2/3. Now, quick review on repeated decimals. 0.2 repeated is what fraction? Does anybody remember? 2/9. 0.1 repeated is 1/9. 0.3 repeated is 3/9 or 1/3. 0.4 repeated is what? 0.5 repeated is, does everybody get the idea? 0.6 repeated, 6/9 or 2/3. Oops, sorry. Okay, these you should have memorized. 0.6 repeated is 2/3. Sorry. 0.3 repeated is 1/3. You should know it as well as 0 and 25/100 is 1/4. 0.5 is 1/2. You should know those 4 fractions as well. I mean, the 1/3 is 0.3 repeated, 2/3 is 0.6 repeated. Are there any questions there? All right, so when given something that looks like a repeated decimal, right? Okay, really, let's go straight for, isn't this a repeated decimal here? Mm-hmm. So it's 77.9, I'm sorry, 0.7. First, I'm going to just do that. That's not the decimal. 77.7 repeated. Now, to go to the true decimal, I have to move it once, twice. That's where my decimal point goes. So how would I write that as a decimal?
0.7 in the bar line.
0.7 with the repeat. I don't need to write all those 7s. And then how do I make the fraction?
77.
7/9. Okay. 7/9. Got it? All right, so I'm not going to take time on this one, but if you want to do it, you can pause the recording. The decimal would be 0.8 repeated. The percent would be 88 8/9%. The next one would be 0.6 repeated or 2/3. This one on the bottom is a little bit different. I know this one. I mean, you can always go from fraction to repeat, but it's hard to go from the percent to the fraction. It's a whole lesson in and of itself. I know that 5/6 is 83% because I give quizzes that are 6 problems. So I know that number really well. The more you use it. Okay, what happens if we have a mixed number? How do I convert that fraction? How do I convert that fraction? Yes.
If it was 3/5 is equal to 0.6.
How did you get that? How did you get?
Because I multiplied 5 by 20.
So there's a couple ways you could do. You could say 5 times 2 or 3 times 2 is 6/10, right? Isn't that 4 6/10? Mm-hmm. You could also take the top dog, 3, put it in the doghouse, and divide by 5. 5 goes into this 0.6, right? So it's 4.6 0.6. Just convert the fraction. And then that percent, what am I doing to go from decimal to percent? Which way am I moving it? Right? Once, twice. And so what percent does it become? So if it's over 1, it's going to be like in the hundreds, the percent. Okay? Questions? Everybody's remembering this? Okay. I'm going to keep going and get to our word problems. Okay, percent word problems. The first one is like a ratio conversion. 6 out of 20. How do I write that? Equals. That means equals what percent. I can write n percent. Or I can set it up as I can also set this up 6 out of 20. You can use the is over of method, but that's kind of hard with this problem because the is actually the 6. Usually the 6 is, some people have been taught is over of equals percent over 100. But what is your is? It's actually that 6. 6 out of 20 equals n over 100.
So would we get a question which would be like 6 is what percent out of 20?
Yeah, you could get that. But you could get it like this too. We're going to go through different kinds. So on this one, it's probably easiest to just do 6 out of 20 equals n over 100. Or equals, you can convert this because n percent means n over 100. Over 100 is your percent. Or you can leave it like this. Okay? This is translating directly. Is means equal. Now, convert this to a decimal. Right? Convert this to a decimal. 20 goes into 6. And what do I get? What is it? It's 0.3 equals n percent. To lose the percent on this side, I have to do what to convert this to a percent? Move the decimal which way? Right or left? If I'm going from decimal, right? It's a decimal and I want to go to percent. Which way am I moving it? To the right because that's the way it goes in the once, twice. So it's 30% equals n. Is everybody understanding that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can you just do it as like 6 over 20 equals x over 100 and solve it?
Yeah, and then when you get 30, you have to know that it's 30%. You know, you don't move the decimal.
For the
Sorry,
if they're asking for a decimal.
but wait, oh yeah, for a decimal, but it's in percent form when you find that x over 100. Yes. Okay, so what she was saying is, if I had done 6 out of 20 equals x over 100, I get 600 equals 20x, divide by 20, x equals 30. So what that 30 represents is 30%, because it's the number that goes here. This is already in percent form, okay? So, next one. What percent? We can do it 2 ways. What percent? What do we do? Not proportion way. What do I write when I see what percent? N percent. N percent. We just say n percent. Of means what?
Divided by.
No. Of means multiplication. Okay, 3.3 5/10 equals is my is 84/100 and solve it like a divide both sides by 3 5/10, and then I get n percent equals when I do that division. N percent equals 0 24/100. To lose the percent sign, I move it over twice. N equals 24%. Now, if I had done the proportion, which is like is over of equals percent over 100. What do I mean by is over of? That's your part of the whole equals part of the whole. The part of the percent of the whole. So the number closest to the is 84. 0.84 over the of, which is 3 5/10, right? So 0 and 84 hundredths equals n over 100. Multiply, I get 884 equals 3 5/10 n. Divide by 3 5/10, divide by 3 5/10. N equals, now we're putting 3.5 into the doghouse, 84. It goes 2. That's 7. That's 1, 4. It goes 4. It's 14. Right? Same thing. So when I get this answer here of 24, notice I'm already in percent form here. And over percent, so it's 24%. So either way works. Okay? We got a lot of problems to do. Okay, percent of a number. 112%, convert it to a decimal. Of means times. Is means equals. What number is n? Do I write n%? No, because they're not looking for a percent, they're looking for a number. Multiply it out. You could have set it up like this. 112 out of 100 equals, the is the what number? The of is 650. Is x over 650. Okay, we could have set it up like that. Another way that they might present it, what do I do here? How's this going to look, this equation? Somebody? What do I do with the 7%? Jamie?
7/10.
7/10 of means
Multiplication.
what number?
N
Good. Is
equals 31 5/10.
good. And then we're just dividing both sides by 0 and 7/10, 0 and 7/100, and we get 450. Okay. Okay, percent of change. There's a formula for this, and here is the formula. This little symbol means change. How do we get the change? What they're talking about is the difference from 75 to 83. So what we're really doing is 83 minus 75 over, what's the original number?
75.
Is this a percent increase or decrease when it goes from 75 to 83? Increase. So it's a percent increase, but you're still doing the difference. Find the difference, 83 minus 75. Okay, you get 8 over 75. And then we divide it. And then we have to convert that to a percent, right? To lose the percent on this side, I have to multiply by 100 once, twice. So it becomes 10 and what?
6/10.
But we don't use 6/10, we use 2/3. Forget not point, we're going to do 2/3. Banks do not do 0.6 repeated. They convert it to the fraction. So it's a 10 and 2/3% increase. Does that make sense? Okay, a couple quick problems to go over. Oh my gosh. I'll probably have to finish this fourth period, but let's try and get to. Okay, tax on a sweater was $3.63. I usually turn this into a word problem. So they want find the tax rate. What percent of 44, yeah. of 44 is, was, will be, is 363. So I'm doing n% of 44 equals, 3 and 3.63. Divide by 44, divide by 44. Does that make sense? I just turn it into my own word problem. I don't know that I would have done it this way. The change, I don't know that I would have done it that way. I would have done it my way. So I said one more time, I change it into what percent of 44 is 363, and do my n over 100. You could do it this way too. Equals 363 over 44. Okay, let me see if I can get this one more in. Discount and markup. If it's 20% discount, what percent are you paying?
80.
So I would do 80% of 85. Does that make sense? We can do that in two ways. So I can do, you can do it two ways. You can do this, or you can multiply the 20% times the 85 and then subtract it. I just go right to, if 20% is a discount, what percent am I paying? 80% of means multiplication. I'll put the rest of this on the video. If you want to watch it, it starts at 21 minutes. Okay?
Is this all on the test?
Okay, so when we're doing discount or markup, okay, if an $85 purchase is discounted 20%. There's two ways to look at it. You can say 20% of the 85, and whatever that is, you subtract it. This becomes the discount here. And this is the original price. So we're really subtracting the original price minus the discount. How do I get that? I multiply 2/10 times 85. That is the discounted amount. But if I just need the total cost, I could take 80%. If I'm getting discounted 20%, I'm paying on 80%. Right? 80% of 85. And that is $68. All right. So, after 30% markup, a shirt was $33.80. What was the original price? So, I kind of like, okay, X is the original price. And so we have the original price right here. This really represents the original price plus the markup equals the new price. Now, what is markup? It's when I go downtown and I buy something really cheap and I bring it and sell it at my store for a higher price and make a profit. So again, I've got the original price plus the markup. The markup is 30% times of the original price. But we don't know what that original price was. So now we end up with 1 3/10 X if I add it, because this is really a 1. And now we can divide both sides. You can either clear it here by multiplying by 10 really, and then I get 13x equals 338, and then solve for your x, divide both sides, and we end up with 26x is $26, and that is the original price. And that is the end of the lesson.